Push live. So we are live. Hey, everybody. Okay. Who saw the Blake Lively smear campaign in August and September? Did anybody see on their social media or news, smear stuff, bad stuff about Blake Lively? But it wasn't really that bad, but it was oh, we don't like her. And we are going to talk about it because it has to do with the hit book, It Ends With Us, that she starred in the movie version, which was a massive hit.
Yes.
It made $350 million worldwide.
Shut up.
And now it's on Netflix. And we're going to talk about what happened because it turns out the director who also starred in the movie with her was abusive to her, and he paid for a smear campaign against her, and it seemed to work for a while, and now the truth is coming out. So I'm going to go get us on Instagram while you fill us in there, Corinne, about what else is going on.
So this is crazy, and this may seem like it is kind of out of the realm of what Sarah and I usually talk about, but it's not. What Sarah and I are kind of grabbing onto with this story is that even somebody like Blake Lively, even somebody with her power, her status, her money, can still be the victim of a smear campaign. And as we have watched some of this stuff happen in Indiana with our former Attorney General Curtis Hill, and now our current State Senator Greg Taylor, David Niedzgodzki, among others, the accused is in a position to launch that smear campaign and go after victims or alleged victims. And so even somebody like Blake Lively can be a victim of this kind of vitriol and targeted campaign. And somebody who is making accusations against someone is in such a vulnerable position to have their character attacked, their story questioned, their motives questioned. And so to watch that play out on this Hollywood scale with somebody as powerful as Blake Lively has been really interesting. And it kind of just makes us regular chicks feel like, oh my gosh, do we not stand a chance at all? Like, holy cow.
But this message ends in hope, you all. It sounds horrifying, but I'm pumped that the truth is coming to light. And I wonder how many stories we've had in the past where we never get the full version. The woman's just the bad person. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, she's making it up. Or
If you are joining us live or if you are watching it after it airs, could you please put in the comments, have you read the book, It Ends With Us? I looked it up and it has sold over 10 million copies of the book It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. It's also been in over 20 languages. And I have read the book. My mom has read the book and my mother-in-law has read the book, which is not a Venn diagram that meets in the middle very often. So a lot of people read this book. So I want to know, if you are watching this at any time, please put in the comments, have you read the book? Are you interested? It's a fantastic book. I recommend it. It's not a black and white. It's about domestic violence, and it paints a different picture. Laura, good morning. Love you. Love you, Laura. Laura just recently lost her mother, and I just want to say that I love you so much, and I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry.
She was watching Tim's show while she was in the hospital with her mom.
Oh, Laura, I'm so sorry.
So anyway, love you, Laura.
Being here with us.
Heart goes out to you and your family.
Laura, I will say, I will jump on what you said, because Sarah and I are in different positions here. So Sarah has read the book and watched the movie. I've not done either. I have not read the book. I have not seen the movie. The only thing I know about this is the Blake Lively controversy. I think that's the first time, and it was September-ish. I think I remember it was fall time. The first time I even heard anything about this movie or knew that it was a book was because of how Blake Lively was answering some comments or answering some questions on the red carpet. So that was my first introduction to all of this. And I have stayed pretty So
I'm going to catch all of you up that haven't read the book or seen the movie, and I'm not going to ruin the plots of the book and the movie. The movie is playing now on Netflix, and it's fantastic.
You can go watch it on Netflix.
I'm going to rewatch it. I saw it in the theater with my friend Kiera. So the book, Colleen Hoover is a pretty famous romance author, but she has not, thanks Deanna, but she is not the typical romance novelist. her books have a lot of like trauma in them,
Mhm.
and these characters are suffering from like PTSD and stuff. And she has these characters, they maybe made like one terrible mistake in their life, or something awful has happened to them, and they get healthier throughout the book, and they meet a man that might also be complicated, and they might fall in love. There's a love story there, but there's real stuff going on. And I have not read all of her books. I kind of need to be in a certain mindset because it goes into a lot of the trauma, and sometimes I don't want to read about trauma. But I loved It Ends With Us, and I loved the sequel, It Starts With Us. And I hope that they make a movie of it without this guy in it. And so the book is based on Colleen's mom. It's based on her real life. Her mom was married to a man that she loved very much, and he was abusive to her. And when she was around 2, I think, when Colleen, the author, was around 2, the mother said, I've got to stop this cycle of abuse. I have to get out of this relationship, even though I still love this man, this complicated, imperfect man who loves me, but also beats me. And she leaves him. And the book is based on Colleen's real life story of her mother. And it is not black and white. It shows a story where you like the man, you care about him. He's had a rough, traumatic past, and he has something wrong with him, but you kind of can't figure out what's going on in the book because it's told through Blake Lively's character, who falls in love with him. And so I had never read a book like that before, and it made me realize what domestic violence victims are going through. It's not a black and white, he hit you one time, leave him. No, you love this person. This person is sorry they hit you. This person says they're going to get better, and you want to believe them. So I had never read a book like it, and I was so glad when this book sold 10 million copies, because I thought it was a topic that we all needed to talk about. And then I saw Blake Lively was going to star in the movie. And I saw that a guy named Justin Baldoni, you can look him up and see his picture, what he looks like, that he was going to direct it. That's what I saw first, because I followed Colleen Hoover on Instagram. I was like, yes, this book's going to be a movie. It's going to star this guy. I've never heard of him, or not star him. It's going to direct him. And it's going to star Blake Lively, a huge star. This is amazing. Then like a month later, it came out, the director, Justin Baldoni, is also going to be the main actor that falls in love with her, with Blake Lively's character, and that has a complicated relationship with her. Okay. So I'm super excited. I even get my friend Kiera, who I just met. We went to high school together, but we reconnected. And I was like, would you want to read this book? And we could go see the movie together. And she's like, sure. And she read the book for me, which I was like, wow, what an amazing friend. So thanks, Kiera. Friend. You're awesome.
You gave your friend homework and they did it.
Yeah, I know. And I'm like, I openly told her I would not do that, because I'm really like, you can't give me a book that I don't want to read. I won't read it. But she's like, sure, I'll read it. She read it, loved it. We went and saw the movie together. And when we were at lunch, before we go to the movie, we're like, have you seen this negative stuff about Blake Lively? And she's like, yeah, I've seen it. And it was like weird stuff, like she didn't talk about domestic violence on the press tour. What an evil person. And then it was like, she's just so self-entitled and rich and famous. And I can't even remember. What did you see?
Yeah. So, my first introduction was seeing Blake Lively on the red carpet and seeing a video. I think it came up on Instagram. So I will be super honest and say I'm not a huge pop culture person. The only I listen to one podcast, and I will plug it because it's amazing. It's called Page 7. It's one of my favorite podcasts, and it's a pop culture podcast. So that's really the only place I get any of my pop culture news. And they talked about this controversy, and they pointed to an Instagram reel. I went and watched it, and I saw Blake Lively. What I saw her do was really, really fumble badly. a question about domestic violence. And I am someone who has experienced domestic violence in a couple of relationships in my past. So thankfully, I'm healed. I am past all of that. It's not really a trigger thing for me anymore. But the way she was talking about it was incredibly cringy. It came from a place that where she did not sound educated. She did not sound prepped. Yeah. And as somebody like I work in the world of PR and communications and marketing, and when you have somebody that you are responsible for, whether they are your client, your spokesperson, whatever, and it's a heavy topic, you have to prep them. You have to give them the right language. You have to give them the right words. So it was very clear to me that Blake Lively had not been prepped in the correct way to talk about this topic.
And I think that was the one that stuck the most. They really put so let's say what happened. So I saw this too. Kiera had seen this as well. A lot of people, I think, got hit on their social media feeds and their news sources. It was on your podcast about Blake Lively. I had seen her being tarnished before, but I also really like Ryan Reynolds and the thing he's doing with the soccer. Have you heard of that soccer show? I think it's Welcome Wrexham, something.
Wrexham. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I've watched that show and seen some behind the scenes of Blake there and just kind of really liked her. Like, she's not a perfect person, but I like her. So I wasn't believing this stuff, but I was very confused by it. Turns out, you guys, while they were making the film, the guy that Colleen Hoover hired, the people that they picked, Justin Baldoni, who directed the film and starred in it, he was abusive to Blake Lively. Blake Lively, who is married to Ryan Reynolds, who is a very big Hollywood movie star with a lot of money and power, she was abused on the set of this movie about domestic violence. And they were scared. It was two guys. It was Justin Baldoni and it was the film's producer, Jamie Heath. The two of them decided to hire a PR firm, give them money for them to smear Blake online. And then there were, the New York Times did an open investigation, which just came out a few days ago. This is how I heard about this. And they reported on it. And they even had text messages from the PR firm that said it was so easy to tarnish Blake Lively's, who she was, and to tarnish her character because she's a woman. And I would add, a good-looking, powerful, rich woman that a lot of people want to be jealous of and hate. So they were saying it's so easy. Yes, we're getting money for this, but it is a really easy thing to do. It went viral.
Can we just stop on that for a second? Like, how incredibly messed up is that? Like, to recognize as a publicist, I mean, as somebody, you know, in that field, you do have clients that are easy and ones that are difficult. You have clients who have a very, you know, tattered reputation, and they have a very sordid past. And you're coming into that client relationship thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to get people to like you? Like, that's my job. I got to get the public to like you or empathize with you or something. And to come in and see them say, oh, this is easy with Blake Lively because she's a woman. That was the only character. She's a pretty rich woman, and the public is so primed to not like her that their job was kind of done for them. And so I want to point out that, like, so the reason that clip was trending, because I want to acknowledge the way Blake Lively answered that question. And I went back and I found the entire clip. It's in its entirety because I really wanted to understand what she said. She butchered the answer to that question, and she did not answer it in a way that it should have been answered with empathy and compassion for somebody who has been in that kind of situation. She honestly butchered that question. But she should not have been asked that question. B, she should have refused to answer it. C, if she wanted to answer it, she should have been prepped better by some professionals giving her the correct language. And D, if it wasn't for this smear campaign that was happening on the backside, we would not have seen that clip. These PR people targeted that clip and said, ooh, look, Blake made a slip up. She said something wrong, because she did say something wrong. Both things can be true, right? She said something wrong, but it wouldn't have been a big deal if these people were not out there to smear her. And that clip started circulating in all of these places because of these freaking publicists.
And also the movie, the people in charge of the movie, the director, this film producer, told her they were not going to talk about domestic abuse. They told her they were supposed to avoid that topic, whereas it would have been a beautiful moment to discuss how it is a not a black and white issue, but a very complex gray one where you love the person that is abusing you. And so she was doing what she was told while she was being pressured. So I want to read some of the things that was done to her on set. Okay. So Blake Lively has filed a lawsuit against her. It ends with us co-star and director Justin Baldoni alleging sexual harassment in a relatory smear campaign. Lively's claims include unwanted improvised kissing, inappropriate comments, and the creation of a hostile work environment. She also alleges that Baldoni orchestrated efforts to damage her reputation after she raised concerns. We now have proof. Everything that she's saying, we have proof of some of these things. One time she said he directed more kissing than what was there's like, whenever there's sex scenes and stuff, you have like a contract of how much you're going to do. He kept upping it and saying it needed to be more. There was a scene behind the set where she was getting makeup done to her and she was topless, and he openly looked at her and she asked him to avert his eyes and he would not. And these are just the ones that she's coming forward. And I'm so proud of her for saying that, because it sounds humiliating. And I feel bad for her that she was in that situation. Anybody that's thinking, yeah, but she's rich and she's beautiful and she's married to Ryan Reynolds and she's a millionaire and I don't care. We need to have empathy for people. And I see so much online of beautiful, famous women getting smeared all the time. If you just look at their comments, they tell them how fat they are, how ugly they are, all these trolls that go after them. So it is not easy being an attractive woman or any woman and being famous and being online. It is hard. So she's got people want to hate her because they're jealous of her. Then she has this man that is her boss doing these things to her. And then they do this smear campaign because they're scared that it looks like if they do this, she hasn't said anything negative about him, about Justin. She didn't say anything negative about him, but they were scared she was going to, because she's a powerful woman. So they hire the PR company and they do the smear campaign, and it does end up hurting her reputation. So
the publicist, which I think that's kind of when I started, my thinking on this kind of started to flip, is the PR firm to do the crisis management or to do the smear campaign against Blake Lively was the same firm that was hired by Johnny Depp to do the smear campaign against his ex-wife during that whole lawsuit thing. And anybody who came away from that lawsuit thinking that Amber Heard was the devil and Johnny Depp was an innocent victim, you fell prey to the PR campaign. Because if you actually look at the details of that case, and if you look at Johnny Depp's history of substance abuse and domestic violence, the man has a 40-year history of doing that. If you look at all of that, you will see that both of them did wrongs. And Amber Heard was not perfect. But again, this is where we get into, if you're a woman and you're going to be a victim, you better be damn sure you are a perfect victim.
So
if you have anything in your past. So if you came away from that lawsuit, if you watched any of that coverage of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard and you thought Johnny Depp was a victim, you fell prey to the PR campaign that a millionaire paid a lot of money for. So we have to be really aware.
And we're not saying there's anything wrong against you. You did nothing wrong.
No.
People paid money and knew the tactics to manipulate us. And it
Yep.
worked as a culture. As a culture, it worked. It blew up. Everybody was following it. And the majority of people were on Johnny Depp's side, where I was horrified by it and thought both of these people are very messed up people and need help. And I didn't understand why they were only going after the woman other than sexism and she's not as famous as him. Yeah, women have to be perfect. If they're going to get abused, they better be perfect or they deserved it, or who gives a flying crap about them.
And and how we're primed to look at it. And, so we're primed to be jealous of somebody like Blake Lively and not like her, right? So we're going to be susceptible to that kind of marketing, right? And then we're primed because of the age that we are and who Johnny Depp has been throughout our entire life. We are primed to look at him as just this, he's this lovable bad guy, right? He's the bad boy. He's got some baggage. He's kind of messy, but he's just so fun and cute. And he's just Johnny Depp.
Right.
He gives so much latitude to somebody like Johnny Depp because we think we have a relationship with them. And then his ex-wife, Amber Heard, we don't really know her. So we don't owe her anything. And that, from a PR standpoint and a publicity standpoint, is leveraged against us. It is used against us as the public because they already know we are predisposed to forgive Johnny Depp because we've been forgiving him for 40 years.
And it's not like we shouldn't forgive people. I have empathy for Johnny Depp. I hope he gets therapy and gets help and gets better. I hope he openly talks about it and apologizes and maybe comes out and says what he did. And I'm not going to hate this man or spend my effort dissing him online or anything. I just also want the same empathy and respect towards the woman, towards Amber Heard, who has had a troubled life. I didn't catch everything, but I did catch enough to know that her life has been rough. And she has had a lot of troubled men in her life. And she's been troubled. And I just am like, where's the empathy for her? Let's help her get better. And as a whole, if you are a woman and if people have hurt you and you're going to come out about it, you better be ready to be treated as the abuser, even though you're the victim, because you're not perfect. And so that's what so easily happened to Blake. People are already jealous of her. They think she rides on her husband's coattails or whatever awful things they say about her.
Even though she was famous before she even met him.
She's a great actress. She got famous on her own. Yep.
And that, like, how we are, because Blake Lively did not answer that question perfectly on the red carpet, that gave that PR firm the nugget that they needed to start perpetuating this narrative that she's a monster.
And anybody today, anybody slightly famous, you can find imperfect things about. You can find comments that I made because I've been on podcasts for the last few years and I'm on social media. You can find bad stuff about me and put it out there and act like I'm an evil monster.
Oh, there's plenty. And there's plenty about me too.
Yeah.
Plenty of people don't like me.
I'm not scared of them because I would just be like, oh, I'm sorry I said that. My views have changed since then. Or you took it out of context. Like, I'm not scared of it. But I'm not as famous as Blake Lively. And so we have to realize that in 2024, this could happen to us. This could happen to you. I have people that don't like me because I go after what they do in the local government. So I have people that don't like me. And I've had to reach a place where if they do something to me, I'll publicly talk about it. And most people support me because I'm not a perfect person, but I'm a genuinely well-liked, people know me in the community person. So we kind of have to get to that place as women and as anybody. This happens to men too, where we have to accept if we're going to be somewhat locally or we're going to be sort of well known, people might do this to us because there are bad people out there. But this story has I'm not going to say happy ending because I'm still very sad that Justin Baldoni did this to Blake Lively. But this story has a lot of hope. Do y'all want to hear the good stuff about this story?
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about it. The New York Times story came out uncovering it. And I watched it and I was like mind blown because again, I've read the book, seen the movie, saw the smear campaign, was confused about it. And I'm like, this explains so much.
Yeah.
Since that came out, Colleen Hoover, the author of the book, the person who was in charge of helping get this movie made, publicly came out and showed her support for Blake Lively. Give it up for Colleen Hoover. The co-star, there's a love triangle going on in the book, in the movie, and there's another love interest in the movie, and his name is Atlas in the book and movie, but the actor Brandon Sklenar, I think is how you say his name. He publicly came out in support of Blake Lively, and I just want to say, to have a man come out and support her, great job. Thank you, Brandon. So I like that guy. There's a sequel. He's in it a whole lot more in the sequel. Hope they get the same actor. Hope they make the second one. Yeah. All of Blake Lively, she was in, what was it, Gossip Girl? She was in a show. Yeah. I've never seen that. But and that was based on a book, I think, wasn't it? I think it was a book.
So.
Yeah. So she was in, when I met her, was for Sisterhood of Traveling Pants. It's a popular book series, a young adult book series. I read all of them, loved them so much. Recommend them for your kids, you guys, your teens. And then there's maybe 2 movies or 1 movie, I can't remember. But Blake Lively stars one of the main girls. All those actresses have become best friends from making that movie together. The other actresses, I know America Ferrara is one of them. All the other actresses in that movie series came out in support of Blake Lively. They issued a statement. So I want to say congrats to that. Yeah. A lot of the women, I think all or most of the women in the film, It Ends With Us, came out in support of Blake Lively. Yeah. So this is something new. I'm not used to seeing a well thought out public shine a light on the bad people and support the woman victim. And this is something I've never seen, and I'm really proud of these people that are doing it.
And I mean, and that, like, I keep thinking that this whole situation it's a peek behind the curtain that most of us never get, because absolutely, yes, it is awesome that all of these people are coming out in support of Blake and they are, sharing statements and sharing their opinions. But let's also remember that is Blake's PR team doing that.
Yep.
So this is now a PR, like they're in the octagon and they are battling it to the death, right? Because there have been lawsuits launched. So Blake Lively's PR team is saying, all right, dude, 2 can play at this game. And now they're working on gathering, because yes, people will send a tweet or they'll post an Instagram story or something in support of their friend. That's not, of course, that can be organic. But to have this whole concerted effort, and the fact that we know all of these people involved in the movie don't follow him on social media anymore. We know that because of her PR team.
Yep.
So we have to, like, when people have this kind of money, this is what they're able to do. And they're able to get all of these sides of the story out. And it is really, really, it's really fascinating because we usually don't see this kind of behind the scenes work. And there are some, like Sarah and I were on the phone this morning, and there's an article that came out.
Oh yeah. It looks cute. I like it.
Yeah, there's an article that came out yesterday that the crisis team, so Justin Baldoni had a publicist, his regular publicist. From her firm, the crisis team that Justin Baldoni hired, he picked away one of her staffers to work on the crisis team and bleed information from the publicist. So he has a regular publicist that is just trying to do her regular job. And then there is a separate publicity team that is going after specifically Blake Lively, and he is poaching information from the regular publicist to undermine her effort to go after Blake Lively. Like, the layers to this is so crazy. And the other thing I just learned, Sarah, so I just did a TikTok live right before this to tell people that we were going to do this conversation. Mm-hmm. And one of my followers said, I'm so disappointed to learn all of this about Baldoni because I've really enjoyed him. I listened to his podcast and I've read his book.
Oh,
And I
wow.
was like, I said, well, what was his podcast? And he said his podcast was called Man Enough. And this kind of comes full circle for us because we just talked about his Man Enough podcast host, Liz Plank, on our show that we did with Scott. So Liz Plank wrote the book For the Love of Men. One of the books that when we were talking about toxic masculinity, Scott mentioned. So Liz Plank and Justin Baldoni hosted a podcast about masculinity and manhood called Man Enough. And she is a very famous feminist author and thinker. And the podcast was awesome. I can't believe I just put all of this together. So like 3 days ago, I see Liz Plank post on Instagram, I have stepped away. I am no longer hosting the Man Enough podcast. I have let the network know I am done. I will talk more about this when I am ready, but I am just processing everything, yada, yada. So she has ended the podcast with Justin Baldoni because of all of this stuff that came out.
I didn't know any of that.
No, I didn't either.
Corinne.
I just learned that.
I saw some interviews of Justin, and he looks like this smart, amazing man, giving women their space and power. He's directing this movie that's so powerful for women, telling a different side to this complex domestic violence issue. And so I was all gung-ho on him. Wow, how great. And I get it. I get why that man commented this. Is that it is sad. We thought he was on the good side, and maybe he thinks he is on the good side.
He might think that. And my friend Ethan, like I've known him for a long time. He's a lawyer. He's a public defender up here in Northern Indiana. He's a brilliant guy, and so I trust his judgment. So for him to say like, I'm so disappointed in Justin Baldoni, like, you can see how somebody that because you and I get it, like listening to podcasts or watching shows, like you start to learn who people really are. And so if and then maybe it's another peek behind the curtain to get us to remember people are showing us who they want us to see. And even in a podcast format that does feel very intimate and personal, I mean, these people are in your ears while you're getting ready for work, while you're cleaning your kitchen, while you're going for a walk, and so you form kind of these parasocial relationships, which is another very interesting. I find parasocial relationships really fascinating.
Me too.
You form these connections with people, and to watch somebody like Justin Baldoni be in this vulnerable space, because Liz Plank is a force of a feminist. She is brilliant, and she is really, really trying to tackle and shed light on so much of this stuff. And she really approaches everything from, look, y'all, your toxic masculinity is hurting you. This is not just about what it's doing to women. It's hurting men, and you need to figure it out, because it's not just about women being victims. She does such a good, and he was just so receptive to that. And they had so many good conversations.
And I'm sad that podcast is over, because it probably helped a lot of people. I mean, it's such a complex thing. It's like Justin Baldoni is not a monster. He's not making good choices. But I don't know enough about him. So here he is doing these good things, and then directing a movie and treating Blake Lively terribly and having a smear campaign against her. Wait a minute. It's just like the man he was portraying in the book, in the movie, because that character is not a perfect person. He's a doctor. He saves lives. He loves Blake Lively's character, and he has a problem, and he was traumatized as a kid. So like, he is portraying someone that he actually mirrors. He's not hitting. He didn't hit Blake. He did inappropriate things with her, and it was about control and power. So he seems to be having some type of power struggle. He's going to let her know he's in charge of her. And he's getting her power back because she's famous and can do the PR thing.
And how much of that, right, of us Laura's right, a wolf in sheep's clothing, like how much of that is us as women doing the therapy work for a man that they should be doing. He should be doing that kind of work. We appreciate all of the, and I'm talking about him as a person and the character and all of the layers that go into it. We have so much more of an appreciation of the complexities that lead somebody to become an abuser, that lead somebody to become a predator or a manipulator. And we do all of that mental and emotional work for somebody else that allows us to empathize for them. And then in the public sphere, if we are imperfect, we get slaughtered.
Right.
And yet we have done all of this work to understand the complexities of this man, and that same work and that same grace is never extended to the victim.
So I'm saying I don't think there should be a hate thing destroy Justin Baldoni's life. And I'm saying that's probably not going to happen because of our culture. We're more empathetic towards men. I don't think that's bad. I think we should be empathetic towards him. We don't know his life. Maybe it's similar to the character he decided to direct and play in this movie. But I want this to happen to women too, to everybody, not just famous people. And then when you apply it to our culture, when you apply it to men in my neighborhood, which I live in an area that the people struggle, and my neighbors struggle, and I love them. When I apply it to them and I see that they're recovering addicts or they're recovering alcoholics or they are an alcoholic, and then you see the abuse, you learn more about some of these men, and they've had tremendous amounts of abuse in their life that they shouldn't have. And then that leads them to not treat the people in their life as well as they should. It's a complex issue. People are not black and white monster good. They're all array of things. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying to be better. But then there are people that are not great and they don't get the help they need, so they get worse, and then they get worse. You pick a path. Which path are you on? Are you trying to get better, or are you just going down and hanging out with people that are more terrible than you? And it's just a conversation we need to have, because in our culture, we like to go good person, bad person, good person, bad person. And it's more complex. And if we can do that for women, if we can look at Blake Lively, who is beautiful and rich and famous, and it looks like she has a perfect life, and we can give her some empathy and realize this had to be pretty terrible filming this movie. This had to be pretty terrible waking up every day to a new smear campaign against her. She's a mother, she's a wife, and her husband do try to help the community. They're not evil people. They are trying to be good people. If we can just open ourselves up to the realization that maybe we don't know everything, maybe we shouldn't judge and say they're amazing or they're terrible.
Oh, they're terrible.
Be more open to the complexities of people.
Super complicated. I just thought of something when you said that, when you mentioned her husband, because we all know she's married to Ryan Reynolds, right? Like, the other thing that when I was starting to hear bits and pieces of this story, it was the criticism from Justin Baldoni that Ryan Reynolds was coming to set, which is pretty rare, right? Like, you're like, Blake Lively is a whole person. She's going to work. You don't need to take your husband with you to work, right? But then to think about now all of the things that we are understanding that were happening to her on set, and she wanted her husband to be there either for support, protection, to witness. Maybe Justin Baldoni wasn't going to be as much of a creep if her husband was standing right there. And that Justin Baldoni's PR team can say, oh, look at Blake Lively. She needed her husband with her because she's so weak and ineffective.
Can you imagine her husband? Can you imagine Blake coming home and saying, I was naked getting ready for a scene, and I asked him to look away, or I was topless, and he wouldn't look away. Can you imagine being her husband, how angry you would feel at this man and being like, that's it. Call up your person. I'm rearranging my schedule. I'm going to set. I'm going to protect my wife.
I'm going to go with you. Maybe
that's what my husband would have done, you know?
And then that is used against her. That is, in the PR machine, took that information and said, look at this little woman. She can't even handle being a professional. She had to have her husband come with her, because that term, like, unprofessional, was used against her in some, like, that makes her unprofessional because she brought her husband with her to set. And it's like, well, she was being ogled and abused and assaulted. And I mean, just.
But wait a minute, we don't like her because she's beautiful and rich and powerful and married to Ryan Reynolds. So it's so easy to be like, oh, she's so terrible, you know?
And how many people don't have any relationship with her as an actor without Ryan Reynolds?
Right.
So like, there are like, to me, Ryan Reynolds is Blake Lively's husband, right? Like, because I knew her first. And then I remember when Van Wilder came out, I think that was like early 2000s. That was one of his first movies. Like, I remember that, but I didn't really have a relationship with him. So there are some people who have more of a relationship with him and say, oh, that's Ryan Reynolds' wife. And then people that have a relationship with her, oh, that's Blake Lively's husband. So then that can also be played on in the public narrative. And so you're going to get probably more of the men who have a relationship with Deadpool, with that movie series, and with Ryan Reynolds that are going to say, oh, look at his bitch of a wife. Like, she needed to have her husband on set, not having any understanding that she is a whole ass actor professional on her own without him.
Right.
And so that there are so many dynamics here that are really confusing and complicated. And it's a really important conversation, I think, for us as consumers of media. I try to talk a lot about this in my content. So not only being somebody who worked in the media, worked in public government, worked in PR and communications, I want people to understand how we are manipulated. I am just as likely to be a victim as everybody else to be manipulated by a narrative.
Yep.
And if we can recognize the same way with advertisement, right? Like advertising, like you would never in a million years think that you could be a victim of that nacho chip dipping in the cheese that comes on in your commercial when you're streaming your show. And then the next thing you know, you're driving by that restaurant and you're like, ooh, nacho sounds good. You're never going to make the connection that you have been influenced or you have been marketed to. You
don't want to admit to it that they got you.
You don't want to admit to it.
No.
None of us want to think that we are that gullible or pliable, right? But we are. And when you start to recognize that your Instagram feed, those reels are shown to you for a reason.
Yes.
Your TikTok feed is curated for a reason. Yes. We've talked about this so much, Sarah, especially with our teenage boys, being moms of teenage boys and seeing what their social media looks like versus what we see.
Yep.
They know what they want to see. And us as women, we're going to be shown that clip of Blake Lively butchering, talking about domestic violence, because it's going to make us say, oh my God, Blake, are you that stupid? Oh, honey, come on.
Right. They knew that it would make an emotional response.
Exactly.
We have a certain feeling about domestic violence. Yep. And so not knowing the people that were abusing her told her she couldn't talk about it because they were her bosses.
Yep.
Yeah. So I wanted to just talk.
So then we are the target audience for that. They know exactly what to show us. And if we can start to recognize the side of the story that we see, that is calculated and orchestrated for us. There is the wizard behind the curtain that is deciding what you see. Your news. This is why it always drives me crazy when people say, well, I did my research and I know the answers. I'm like, no, you did not research. You're not a scientist. You Googled something and Google gave you the answer that it knows you wanted.
Yep.
So even our search engines are they're not blank canvases where the truth is going to appear. It is a curated version.
And this is why we started Project Next Media, Corinne, because whichever media source you are picking, they are telling you what you want to hear. And both sides, right and left, do not get the truth because they're pumping out what's going to make you watch them more. They're not pumping out the accurate thing. When I did Tim Peck's Dr. Tim show, I was so relieved because he spoke the truth. He didn't give the Democrat side or the Republican side issue of medical care. He talked about the truth since he's lived it. And that's what we're trying to do here. That's what you guys that are listening to this show, we start asking for the truth. We start digging deeper than what Google or our media wants us to see. And we think about it. We talk to our friends about it. And then we tell other people about it. Like, talk about this. I am full of hope that Blake Lively paid her PR team and the story made it and her friends are supporting her, because it's so refreshing from the Johnny Depp side of things that happened not too long ago. We're getting more of the truth. This is good. We're not all Blake Lively. We can't all do it. But in our own lives, we can use this as models. And I want to talk a little bit about smear campaigns against me. I ran for county council 2 years ago and then state house. And I tried to call out, well, I called out Parks Department corruption. And the main man that's doing this, he went on a smear campaign about me. And he told everybody in the community that would listen to him that I'm a bully. And I didn't realize that for years. I just thought people knew I'm not a bully. I'm just trying to stop the missing money that is proven in these audits. You know, we're missing money. We have a casino in our county and we get a lot of money from that casino. And a lot of that money goes to parks and it's unaccounted for. So I started becoming friends with the leaders in our community that are Republicans, because no Democrats have any control in our county. And I found out from them, oh, I thought you were a bully. The Parks Department guy keeps telling us, but you seem nice. Wait a minute.
Wait a second.
I'm like, wait, he's telling you I'm the bully? He's the bully. Oh, he's really nice to you. Wait a minute. And so the confusion of what is going on. And I would meet people and say, please vote for me. And they were shaking in anger at me, the monster Sarah Blessing. And because of whatever stuff he said to them about me, he spent a lot of time slamming my character. So I've had it done in a local level. And there are still people in the community, because I can't instantly meet everybody, that shakingly hate me because of the things this man is saying to them about me. So I have this happening in a much smaller level. And I don't have trouble going to sleep at night, but I will admit to you, it hurts. It hurts that good people working hard for our community think I'm a monster. And if I meet them in person, I will sit down with them and take as much time as I have available to explain the truth. But I can't get it out. That person's not on social media, because if you're on social media, I've pumped up enough evidence to show what's going on. So most people know, our Parks Department's shady. So I get what Blake is going through on a much smaller level, and it hurts, but I know how to fight it. You fight it with the truth. You fight it with the truth.
And because that's what I think sometimes when it comes to our criminal justice system, like I think about our belief to like maybe assume that somebody is guilty because they hired a lawyer, when all of us have a right to legal representation, right? That's in our Constitution. I never look at that as a sign of guilt. I look at that as smart. Everyone should get a lawyer. I don't care who hears this. Never talk to the police without a lawyer, ever, ever. And
make friends with lawyers. You need a lot of them.
Never talk to the police without a lawyer.
With lawyers.
I don't care if you were like, they're talking to me about something that happened in Wyoming and I haven't left Indiana in 25 years. What did it? Never talk to them without a lawyer, ever. So I will never, ever, ever discount they got a lawyer. Ooh, shady. That might mean guilty. Now, I never think that. Now, take that to the PR side. When Justin Baldoni hires a crisis PR team, I know he did something wrong, because he wants to get out ahead of whatever Blake is going to put out there. He knows he was creepy. He knows he was looking at her getting undressed. He knows he was forcing her to do physical things in scenes she didn't want to do. He knows all of that. And the PR to go on the offensive before she even talks about any of it, because maybe she would have just let it go. Who knows? Maybe it would have just been chalked up to, that was a gross experience. I'm never working with him again. The movie is done. Thank God. That could have been one way that this went. But because he decided to go on the offensive, he loses that benefit of the doubt. from me in that
Yeah, me too. Right.
in that situation. You are obviously showing me that you are willing to throw money at this problem because you did do something wrong, and you want to lay the groundwork for whatever comes out in a future lawsuit, because he was preparing all of these people. He was muddying the waters in all of these different places.
What is you knew about this story? The PR person that he tried to blame. It's like he pulled a woman over.
Yep.
What was that? Tell us that.
He like poached. So his like PR, his publicity firm, that's like his regular publicity, he poached one of their staffers to go work on his crisis team. His original publicity firm is now suing him for undermining their efforts. So a breach of contract, toxic work environment, kind of all this stuff. Because if you are in a contractual relationship with your publicist, you cannot turn around and hire another publicist to undermine their work.
Okay.
So that's what he was doing. So like I can't be in a relationship with you as a professional, and then you're hiring somebody to undermine what I'm doing. So that's what the publicist is alleging, is I was in a contract with you to do publicity for you as a director and for your film, and yet you've hired this other entity to undermine me and to like muddy up what I'm doing. And so, yeah, so there's a whole, I mean, this thing is so freaking messy. And when you pull back from it and you think like, holy shoot, like how much money and time and resources, and you have to think of like, if this goes to the courts, like how much like judicial resources
we're gonna have to do a part 2 in like 6 months or something to update what is going on, because it's interesting and I've never seen anything like it before, in a positive way. I also want to talk about when you're in an abusive situation. So Blake did not get on her social media and do a live and say, this director who I'm working with did this terrible thing to me today. She came home and probably told her husband, and that's probably why he came on set.
Mm-hmm.
It's very confusing when the abuse is happening in real time. Your brain, just the way we are as humans, we don't immediately identify it as troubling because, again, Justin seemed like a really nice person. He probably is, to most people, a nice person. And she wants the movie to do well. She clearly liked the book, and she clearly wanted this movie to do well because it's such an important subject matter. So she's not saying anything negative publicly, but she's privately telling her husband probably. That is more realistic. A lot of people want to, blame her. Why didn't she come out at the time? Why didn't they fire him and get a new director and have a new actor? Well, that's not the way the real world works. She's trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's probably nice to her most of the time, and then throwing in these little bits of controlling, awful behavior. So it's the way the real world works. Those of us, I haven't been in a relationship, thankfully, where I'm being physically hurt. I've had other things done to me in relationships in the past. It's confusing. You don't identify it. Sometimes you don't think you deserve anything better. Sometimes you don't realize there is better. You don't know how to get out of it. You love the person. There's feelings involved. It's so much more complex than what we talk about openly. And that's why I feel like this conversation is so important. It's not black and white. It's complex. And I'm thankful this story's coming out. I want to give a shout out to Kiera. She's on. Kiera said, I read it and saw the movie. This is my friend that I asked to read the book. She reads the book. She sees the movie with me. This is a new friend, Corinne.
That's what I tried out. Since she just joined us, I'll say, Kiera, like, you're a for real friend because Sarah gave you a homework assignment. And for anybody who hates homework, it would have been like, don't tell me to read something. Like,
I'd only had like a couple lunches with her, but I was like, she's the type of person that probably like it. So that's why I asked. But so she went to high school with me. Kiera did. And, but we weren't close friends. We were just in the same circle. I come out openly with my dark thoughts, my suicide scare in the spring. She messages me and invites me to lunch
Oh,
once
that's so nice.
and she shared her own similar the trauma things that happened to me. Also, similar thing happened to her, and she shared it. And she is like a gem of a person. So
That's
like,
lovely. I love that
if
vulnerability.
if you guys, I got new friends this year. Corinne, you're one of them. And what a blessing. What a blessing. So Kiera read it. She also said it was sad that this scandal happened around this particular movie. I bet that this type of scandal happens all the time with tons of movies and we never hear about it. I'm I'm sad it happened, but I'm glad we're seeing it because the whole book and the movie's about this.
Yep.
So if you guys, I really encourage you all to read that book, or if you don't read books, just see the movie on Netflix. It's on there now. It's a great movie. They did a great job, and that actor does a great job. The director, Justin, he does a great job.
Yeah, and then but then to like watch it with fresh eyes and just be like, oh, like he was such a piece of crap, like behind the scenes. And you think about, there are so many different, I mean, we spend a lot of time in the political world, and you look at the power dynamics that are in play in a political situation, whether it is within the structure of a campaign or within the structure of an elected official's office. There are set power dynamics. Somebody is in charge. The same thing happens on a Hollywood set. There are certain environments where we allow abuse to happen because we think it comes out with a better product. The one that I come back to all the time, and if anybody's not familiar with this, I encourage you to go watch the documentary on this, but the movie The Shining with Stanley Kubrick directing it. Shelley Duvall was tortured, emotionally tortured during that movie. And everybody looks at Stanley Kubrick as a genius, and I'm not taking it away from him. He's a very talented director. But we should really reframe how we think of these people. Are they really geniuses, or
so he I didn't watch it, but my husband told me about it. So he like manipulated her to make her terrified and paranoid so that her performance would be better, instead of teaching her what he wanted and letting her use her intelligent brain to act terrorized. He actually terrorized her.
I mean, she's an actor. She should be challenged to act that way. She shouldn't be forced to, as a person, be a victim of emotional manipulation so he gets the performance that he wants. But there are so many scenarios where we see this happen over and over and over again. Campaign leaders, the candidate on a campaign.
Oh yeah, I heard about that this year. Yeah.
Yeah, and criticizing their staff. Yeah. And yet when they win their campaign, all's forgiven. When the movie does well, all's forgiven. When The Shining is a huge hit, it doesn't matter what it took to get that performance. He got that performance, and we're going to credit him as a genius. And if Shelley Duvall wants to come out and talk about it, she's just whiny and ungrateful.
And I know we had the Me Too movement. And the Me Too movement wasn't perfect because it really went after everybody. And in some of these instances, I don't think deserved the same treatment as other instances. So the Me Too movement helped. It was good. It's not perfect. It's messy. But clearly stuff is still going on. The fact that a powerful woman like Blake Lively could be treated this way in this day and age and really shows a lot more needs to happen in Hollywood. They're doing some things have got better. I also just want to shout out, when I was prepping for this episode, Corinne, I realized, oh crap, I am making a legit media company with Tim Peck. We better make sure none of our employees hurt another employee. When we grow, we're going to need to have systems in place to make sure our content creators and our people working for us are protected. It was the light, and I don't know whether I would have realized it if we weren't talking about it today. So this is one of the many reasons why it's so important we talk about it. So Corinne, you can help me make sure that we're protecting everybody. That's so important to me, making a new media company. We've got to make sure our people feel trusted enough to go to me and Tim and tell them what's going on and be believed and work it out. And it's not black and white. It's going to be messy. Let's get in there. Let's find out what's going on. How do we fix it? Does this person need to leave the company? You know, like we're going to have to work on that. It's probably going to happen if we're going to keep growing, you know?
And the understanding and appreciation that there already is a power dynamic in place. So when you step into a situation as a boss or as a manager, you are already in a position of power, and you just have to be aware of that none of that comes off as an abuse of power. And that is something that we culturally can do a much better job of in different situations, because if we are really, really honest with ourselves, we do not get the best out of people, whether they're our staff, they're our actor, they're our whatever, partner, kid, whatever. We do not get the best out of them when the power dynamic includes abuse of any form. And we get the best out of people when we are respectful and we collaborate. And that doesn't mean that no relationships can sour, because they can sour and maybe it's just not the right fit and everybody moves on. But there does not need to be toxicity as a part of that. And I think sometimes in certain environments, like a Hollywood movie set, we just assume, yeah, you got to treat people like crap because you're the star or you're the director. And that's how we get a good movie.
And that's what's been taught. We have to change the system. So like I've had bad bosses before. We've got to do an episode about it. Wait till you hear the crazy stuff that my bad boss did to me and others. We have to model, how do you have a good business? So I want to do that with Project Next Media. But it's new to me. I've never done it before. So I'm going to have to really talk and communicate and make sure people are trusting enough to come to me with any issues. It's going to be interesting to make sure we do our best to protect everyone. We show people the culture. I'm going to show my kids, my 3 kids, how to be a good leader. How do you lead and care about people? And then when they identify bad ones, we give them the tools to get out or to change it. You know, that because we all want to protect our kids, but the world's scary out there. So I think just being a leader and a model ourselves and teaching that to them is probably the best thing we can do, because think about if they grow up seeing a bad model, they'll have to unlearn it, which I've been doing my whole life, unlearning bad traits. Yeah. Our next episode is going to be Sunday at 11 this Sunday. Corinne and I came up with a very fun topic that we want to hear what you guys have to say. Corinne, tell us the topic, girl, because you came up with it.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about what it means to be a boy mom. And I'm saying boy mom because I am a mother of 2 boys. Sarah's got 3 kids. 2 of her kids are boys. And how the term boy mom has been co-opted and kind of taken by some parents who have really questionable relationships or views of their children. And how much of that is coming from this societal pressure and expectation that we are supposed to be obsessed with our children and have no other interests. So when I come across a mom who is standing next to her son saying, I can't believe I'm going to have to share him with another woman someday, and my urge to vomit, and I want to start to unpack that and think, okay, is she being told, is this the message that she has received?
Yeah.
That this is the mom she is supposed to be, because wherever she got that message from needs to be burned down.
Yeah.
Because if you are a mom and that is your entire personality, is that so outside of the realm that that's how you would think? Because we've totally lost the plot then. We've totally forgotten that we are raising adults. Our children become adults and they are supposed to go out and have their own relationships and lives. And we're not creating an adult that's going
Our culture is so toxic.
Oh, it's so gross.
Moms and how we should be obsessed with our children. And that should be our ever waking moment. Well, we also need to be obsessed with our spouse too. After children, spouse, we're so far down the list of our own needs, and it's like, this is not healthy.
No.
I tried to do this too. I felt the society pressure when I became a mother from 1 to 3 all of a sudden. I tried to do it. Culture's telling me to do this, and I'm like, why am I so miserable? And it's like, oh, I have to meet my own needs and go out and do my own things. And it's not good for the kids to be obsessed with them.
No.
But that's what our culture is telling us. So we're not blaming people that have the pressure, I should be obsessed with my kids. We're saying our culture is telling us we need to be obsessed with our kids, and that is not healthy. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. And if you are turning that into like some kind of weird, like incestuous thing, like with your children, like therapy, like we've got to get you to therapy because, oh my goodness, like that's so damaging. Like that is so damaging. And we have to be the task of being a parent is one that should be taken seriously because you're creating somebody's future partner, somebody's future employee, future tenant, future, member of society. Like, that's somebody's neighbor that you're creating. Like you have such a responsibility to create a whole, complete, caring and compassionate person. And they can't be obsessed with you as a mom. That's just so weird.
So we're going to talk about that. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. If you are a parent or want to be a parent, or maybe don't want to be a parent because of the culture, we want to know what you think. If you are watching this episode and the live's over and you're just rewatching it, thank you so much. We'd love to hear what you have to say in the comments. Mm-hmm. Please share. I'm going to turn my music on. Thank you, Chris' husband, for making this music. If you could please share this episode on whatever social media you're watching it. It's easily played on Facebook and YouTube are the two main ones. We're also putting the episodes up on Blue Sky, X, and then Instagram. You can catch it live.
Yep.
And then we're hoping to get TikTok if I can get the stream key thing. So we'll see. But please share everything. Please text a friend. Like send a friend this episode that read the book or watched the movie and is interested. Just like go to YouTube and save it and go and send it to your friend on their phone. That helps us out so much. And also we want to hear from you and what you think. So what are your thoughts about It Ends With Us? Anything we didn't touch on, put it in the comments.
Yes. What did we miss? What are your thoughts? Yeah. Awesome. Thanks to everybody for being here. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you guys. Thanks for doing this with me, Corinne, because you didn't read the book or see the movie, and I was like appalled. So thanks for getting into it with me. You rock.
Coming in fresh. Yeah.
All right. Bye, everybody. Love you all. Hope you have a great holiday, and hope you have more days off from work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Happy New Year, everybody.
See you Sunday at 11 for the Boy Mom Talk. Bye,
Boy
guys.
Mom, bye.